All right, welcome to the Fantasy Football Report. We are excited to be joined by a returning guest. Connor is here to discuss Week 15 with us. He was probably you remember him from when he was back on. I don't even remember what week it was. I think I missed that show, but I'm excited to be able to talk to you this time. How's it going?
Doing good, doing good. Um, mixed bag on the fantasy football, but I'm having a good week.
Yeah. I wanted to say that thank you for coming back on. We enjoyed having you back, and it's good to have you back here. This is around the time of year where we start looking forward a little bit forward to next year, but get your thoughts on today. Um, I would want to let everyone know that before we start, Chris Godwin took what seems to be a pretty serious hit, um, and he is down right now, like really bad. We let you know in case anything changes, but yeah, it's a bit of a shame there. So I wanted to get a little bit of your thoughts here, Connor, because we are for any of you who play best ball, and especially the tournaments, we are well into the knockout rounds. Connor, how do you think you did this year, and will you be changing your approach up a little bit next year out of curiosity?
Um, so I'm it's too. I guess it's definitely too early to tell. Uh, but I'm at a weird spot where my if you look at my teams across the board, my advance rates were were basically average, which I drafted with good structure, so that was disappointing. But on the flip side, when I look into this round, like I said, it's too early to tell. Um, but I think that I will have a better than average advance through this one, and hopefully whatever I get through, those are better off too. So it's kind of weird. Um, I definitely drafted very wide receiver heavy. I was very willing to take risks at running back, even more so than traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to let's say the even when I was drafting hero running back team, so that's when you draft one up top, and then
Mm-hmm.
normally four more. I was much more willing to push uh uh the I was willing to push the edge there a little bit more. Um and I think that throughout the regular season, that's probably uh hurt my advance rate a lot. Same thing with quarterback. I was a lot more willing to be shaky with my second quarterback, a lot more willing to be shaky with my second tight end. Um, and those are all things that if you're in a league, uh, it doesn't help you. But I think that when those bets did pay off, uh, now again we've so many games left to play, so I could have egg on my face on Tuesday. But I think it's paying off throughout. Um, I think though, if I'm reflecting back on one thing that I could have done slightly better, is be more a little bit more nihilistic on on the players I was picking. Um, like personally speaking, I took huge stances. Um, So, for example, when the Julio Jones news was coming out, and it was like, oh, he's gonna leave the Falcons. There was no in the drafts I was doing, there was no reaction. He was still late second, early third, and I was like, okay, well that's wrong. So anytime I'm anywhere near that, I'm just gonna hammer. Uh,
Yeah,
and I think I had like 30% Calvin Ridley. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean, look, it's like that is like a very abnormal absence. And I think that the process that got you onto Calvin Ridley was correct.
right.
And it's a shame, and we've said this multiple times in the show, but please be well, Calvin, right? Like, because like the
Yeah,
game
yeah,
is
yeah.
better with him in it.
Yeah,
it's a
it's all about his health for sure.
mhm. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely an unusual outcome for him. Like the reason he's missing the season is not something you expect to happen. But it's also, I think, to your point, he could have just as easily torn his ACL or something, and you'd still be regretting that 30%. So
yeah, but I mean, conversely, Russell Gage went off today, and that could have just been Conor, Calvin Ridley, and Conor could be sitting here going, "Well, I got like a 40-point week out of Calvin, and this is it, right?"
That's true.
Right.
Like this is one of those abnormal. You can't beat yourself up on the process there because it's very hindsight fueled.
Right.
I will. The point that I liked Conor making was about being nihilistic in your player selection is something that we at RotoViz using our tools. If you were to just literally draft by the heat maps and literally not care about who the name is you're clicking, you probably have a much better win rate than actually going through and actually selecting players. Conor, out of curiosity, have you been playing best ball long, or is this like your second season?
For best ball, this is actually my first year.
This is your first year?
Yeah.
Okay, so congratulations, you're doing much better. You're doing really well. You should be proud of yourself. Because in my first year, I think I lucked out. My second year, I paid my tuition pretty heavily by doing what you did, where I took very difficult stances on players. And this was the year Rashad Penny was coming out of college, Royce Freeman was coming out of college, overdrafting these dudes and just like taking turds in my lineup. Meanwhile, you got Sean writing, "Oh, take Chris Carson in the 20th," and I'm like, "What does Sean Siegel know about running backs?" Right? And that happened, right? So I had like 30% Rashad Penny, nothing, right? 30% Royce Freeman, nothing. And then on top of that, like when you take stances like that, it's completely gonna just sink you. So right. I think the nihilism point is well taken, because those ADP heat maps, people aren't necessarily going back and matching this stuff up, but you'll see guys like Ben Roethlisberger and Kirk Cousins going after younger sexy QBs like Justin Fields and Trey Lance, who's an absolute waste. But like the last few years, guys like, and you can do this on the site, is you can go see where Justin Herbert was going. And last year, when Herbert went off, there was a parade of fantasy analysts yakking about Tyrod Taylor, right? And they just kept his ADP low. And we didn't hear the same parade of analysts shamelessly touting Jimmy Garoppolo, because they can't do that. Right. And so we just need to be more nihilistic about who we're listening to, and let the market maybe make some of our decisions for us.
I think one example, it's a good example where I can say, hey, this is something where I need to fix next year. Two players in the third, fourth round that I really liked were DJ Moore and Chris Godwin, and I like them I like them way more than Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. And so whenever I got a choice, it was always, hey, I want DJ Moore, I want Chris Godwin. And like I don't think maybe the prospect stuff wasn't absolutely wrong there, but it doesn't matter. Like a scenario that I did not envision happening, where Cooper Kupp like just completely gets a stranglehold on the receiving share and becomes this 25-point a game guy. And there's no way I can't say, hey, I should have predicted this, but I can say, hey, maybe I shouldn't have been so certain about those players. And as you say, that's where you say, like, don't look at the names quite so much. The ADP hit maps, your structure, right. And then when you get and then you can find yourself on something like that and just get lucky.
Yeah, even if you're sorry, you were saying, Blair?
No, go ahead.
No, because like I'm giving just a peek behind the curtain on like how I approached this year. Was I had rankings, I had tiers, but like in the round, I'm not. So like the trick is you don't want to reach for certain guys, because I tried playing a lot more volume, just because you don't want their ADPs to go up, and you don't want to be chasing guys whose ADP spiral up, right? So I was just taking whoever would come to me in that round in the same tier, and then just sort of pray that they come back to me in the next round if I had them ranked in the same tier. But like I'm okay with letting them go, right? So like even if I had Cooper Kupp ranked alongside Godwin or whatever, and I think that like he might come back to me if I'm at the back end of the 4 or 5 turn. It's happened a couple of times. I got lucky, but it's just one of those things where You don't want to pick these guys and like chase a spiraling upward ADP because it happens to. I mean, we see it every offseason where like fantasy Twitter talks about XYZ player being underrated, and then all of a sudden, like they're just chasing this one guy, and it doesn't work out that way. I mean, Jacoby Myers comes to mind, Marcus Callaway comes to mind, and these are just the late round guys, like guys like Jarvis Landry. The Visca Chenault, Jarvis Landry was a league loser. Robert Woods has been a league loser for a few years. So you want to avoid just buying into these like hype circle jerks, right? And conversely, someone like Tyler Boyd just saw his ADP completely crater. Like the fact that you're getting Tyler Boyd by the end, like closer to August, after a lot of these guys who busted is ridiculous. Tyler Boyd as a wide receiver 5 is, I mean, good God, man, like that's awesome.
Right, and he just went nuts today as well. So even if the funny thing is, even if he didn't help you that too much, but he's still somebody who's very, very live to do something like that, and you're getting him at that great price where you could take him into the playoffs and he could help you like that.
Right. Yeah, I think one thing, from digging into like the win rates and stuff, you realize how different the guidance has to be between best ball and redraft. So we talk about zero running back. We talk about structural drafting and not necessarily, value-based drafting. And I think what you kind of discover is that works really well in redraft, where you have a waiver wire. You can pick up guys like Cordero Patterson. You can drop guys who get hurt. And in best ball, it's almost more you have to be a little more value conscious there, because you have to, like you said, diversify on these early guys. And, the best way to do that is to just take guys who you're not necessarily on, but who fall past ADP. So, I mean, I hate to say like, oh, just let the draft come to you and then you'll be fine. But I mean, in best ball, a little bit of that actually is kind of what you have to do, I think.
Let me give you a somewhat embarrassing example. So one of my better teams that did advance on FFPC, the FFPC best ball, it had Leonard Fournette, and the reason it had Leonard Fournette is because in that draft he fell way past his ADP, and I auto drafted him by accident. And that was the best pick that entire draft.
Yeah, right.
Just because it was a very value conscious running back bullet pick.
And I mean that just sort of speaks to the nihilism a little bit, right? Like it's a little bit like with Deebo Samuel, right? Like we know Deebo is good. He just went so late. Like there was like a pretty big delta between him and Ayuk and Kittle when there shouldn't have been.
Right.
And this is going to be very hindsight biased, so I apologize to our listeners, but there's a very good reason behind dual elite tight end, and we saw it play out this week a little bit with Kelsey going off on Thursday night, and then Mark Andrews just completely going off today, right? So Andrews, I don't have his exact stat line, but it doesn't matter who his quarterback is. He's just been producing, right? Today Huntley, had threw 215 yards and 2 TDs, and Andrews was the guy who caught both of those TDs, and that's the kind of value you can get from the dual elite TE because you're freeing up a roster spot, and 2, you're getting one of those like massive 35 point plus weeks into your flex.
Yeah.
So Conor, were you on Andrews at all this year, or was it just one of those like taking Hawkinson over Conor? Because that was, over Andrews, because that was a very big decision point. I remember.
For me, Andrews, one way or another, ended up being my biggest weight at tight end.
Congratulations.
So it worked out for sure.
That's the way, man.
I thought that it was one of those situations where nobody had any doubts whatsoever as to how good Andrews is as a player. Nobody had any doubts as to what kind of target share he would have. But people had like just these insanely confident opinions as to how often the Ravens were going to pass. And I think in terms of like passing volume, you've probably got the best possible. I not touch wood. Like obviously devastating for all the players who did get hurt. And I don't want to say that I predicted that, but I think that people were too confident as to how the Ravens were going to be able to play throughout the year. They were too confident that
Way too confident.
And it was like one of those, like, they just had this huge outlier in terms of like low passing volume, just huge outlier. And so even just a little bit of reversion to the mean was going to make it a good pick at his ADP. I think one thing as well on him that and something that I kind of noticed. I was talking to some people about him, and they said that they just couldn't click him. It was one of those guys they couldn't click, and it was because they got burned so much by him last year. And that's one of, I think that's one of those things. Like I like try to stay very tuned into behavioral things, like what are the systematic mistakes that we can make. And having been burned by someone before, like that's something I'm sure there are players who burned people this year that are going to be screaming values next year.
Yeah, it's just really weird that it's like one of the handful of elite tight ends is suddenly the guy who you're not going to be able to click, right? Like, we don't see people doing that with CMC or Saquon or any of these like running backs. Like we see it with like, these pass catchers for some odd reason. And like what really is interesting to me is like if with the Ravens, even, and this is like, okay, so after the Dobbins injury, right? Like after we know Dobbins, like none of the pass catchers' ADPs really moved. They kind of crept upwards, but I mean, people were like doubting Marquise Brown kind of late, but a lot of like sharp analysts were really not talking about him because, I mean, hey, free arbitrage Will Fuller in the 11th, guys. Like, let's get this, right? Like no one's gonna talk. You're not gonna see this stuff pop up on Twitter. No, people are not necessarily incentivized to write about this sort of stuff because it
was a very uncomfortable position to take because the negatives about them were so easy to imagine, and the easier something is to imagine, like we have this thing where like the easier we can envision something, the greater the importance, the greater the weight we place on our mind on that.
It's also like Dobbins or whoever the Ravens running back is like the epitome of the sort of analytics running back who doesn't matter, right? Someone who just only scores touchdowns and doesn't catch passes. So I mean, Dobbins is out, whatever. Gus Edwards is the same guy. Oh, he's out, whatever. This guy we've never heard of, Tyson Williams, is the same guy.
Then Devonta Freeman and then the Latavius Murray, right? Like guys who no one was even drafting.
Right.
I mean, to that end, a team like the Bills you can see how on the one end of the spectrum it is difficult, right, with the Bills. So the Bills this season is playing out high, kind of how you'd imagine the Ravens, right, where Josh Allen is the running back. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Conor, because Devin Singletary today just sort of, I mean, reaped the souls of the Panthers, right? He rushed 22 times for 86 yards and a score. He also had one target for 10 yards. So are we like transitioning out of this, running back by committee approach the Bills have? Is it like Devin Singletary time? Zach Moss is, continues being healthy scratches. So what are you doing with Singletary?
I think on a game to game basis, the one thing that matters is whether Zach Moss is activated or not. Because when Zach Moss is activated, when they have a spot on the game day roster, they do mix and match it up a little bit, and that kind of sends the preferences. I think that to me, it's obviously not a pure signal, but it has been some indication of what the game plan is as well. In that, like when they decide to activate Zach Moss, they've done that. He doesn't play special teams, so they've done that to mix him in. But when he's not playing, they had that. I forget. I'm drawing a blank on the other guy's name. They had the other guy who they were mixing in with Singletary, Breida. But I guess he's an older guy. I think he's made a few mistakes, and so it's extremely encouraging that with Zach Moss as a scratch, that he got what you said, 20 touches. It's extremely encouraging.
Yeah.
And whenever you have a running back like that, like unless you draft way differently than I do, you're going to start that guy. I think not Zach Moss. Singletary is another interesting guy, in that he was at least as long as I can remember, he was a running back with a very clear, defined role that, like, we knew he was going to be on the field a decent amount, but he was going at ADPs that were like between 140 and 150.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, man, like, people hate running backs. They don't think we'll ever see the field. Again, this is going to be me leaking a little bit, like, just from where this goes, but people don't like running backs. They can't see as like the lead guy who gets, like, 60% plus touch share, right? And if you go back a little bit, and it leads to, if you go back a little bit, you'll see a lot of like pretty big, like, guys with like decent sized followings who will never ever go back to their early season calls and ever question why they weren't on Darrell Henderson at ADP or Alexander Madison at ADP or literally any of the parade of running backs who have started and given you RB1 numbers at some point or RB2 numbers at some point. They will never ask themselves that question because they're too busy jamming in the Sterling Shepherds of the world, the Alan Lazards of the world. They're just so busy cramming their roster full of dog shit wide receivers that they cannot see the forest for the trees. And this is why they will always be beatable and beaten, right? People are crying on Twitter about their best ball teams or how difficult a season this is. And like, the answer is, this is every year. Every year there's going to be this sort of stuff. And none of these people are ever going to wake up. They're going to be throwing money away into a pit. And we're going to make money on these people. That's just all I got to say. I mean, like, there's a reason why like a lot of like analysts tend to not give away a lot of like these secret names, like a lot of names. Like you'll find that they'll be quiet about it until the end. And there's a bunch of shark best ball players who just don't even post on Twitter, and they like, man, like,
just
you should see some of the exposures. Sorry?
They just take advantage.
Yeah, like complete advantage players, man. Like these guys move ADPs, and then it just sort of changes everything.
I think I think you made a really good point in that people don't want to draft somebody that they can't envision being the lead back, so to speak. But you just told me that Singletary was the lead back, was a 20-touch lead back today.
Yep.
And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can envision it or not, because like how are you going to envision a backfield split in week 15 in July? Like you can't do it.
Godspeed to you, man.
This is why, I mean, it's like one of the main reasons Zero RB works is because we're so bad at predicting who's actually going to be the starter. I mean, especially in week 15, but I mean, we're bad at predicting who it's going to be in week 3. So
because the narrative immediately shifts into, well, if this hadn't happened, I would have gotten it right. Well, yes, I know, but it happened.
Stuff like that always happens.
It happens. It happens a lot.
You know, if whatever the split was in week 1, if that had just carried out throughout the season, I would have been golden.
Yeah, I mean, but also think about like all the Kareem Hunt shares that we had that just didn't work out because he got hurt, right?
Right.
Think about DeAndre Swift, who was an absolute smash in the mid to late third, right? And now you've got these Craig Reynolds is out there,
right?
Like what is Craig Reynolds, right? So you get like all these situations where it gets interesting. I mean, like, so here's a good one from today. Duke Johnson's back in the league, boys, and he rushed 22 times for 107 yards and 2 scores, and he had a 20-yard catch. So, like, like,
what team though?
On the Pins, on the Dolphins. They just basically got like an arbitrage Patrick Laird from free agency.
And the funny thing is, in DFS, Gaskin was one of the chalkiest running backs.
He was chalk today, right? Yeah.
He was
Conor. What was ownership?
It was about 20%. That depends on the different contests, but it was about 20%. on Miles Gaskin. I was like,
And okay, so I wanted to get your thoughts on this, right? And I want to get your take. So one, did you catch that news about both Gaskin and Sullivan
Ahmed.
Ahmed? I didn't, so I missed that. But I wanted to get your thoughts there on Duke J, and has he like really carved himself out a role going forward?
I mean, these things are it's like we just said how difficult it is.
Yep.
I think there's probably two factors that are kind of opposing. One, he played really well, and we know that when guys play really well, like the coach said, okay, that guy played really well, like let's get him on the field. The other part of it is that the two other running backs were just coming off the COVID list, and so that can I think there were comments that their conditioning wasn't quite where it should be to play a full NFL game, and so that's why they use Duke more. So he's definitely going to play, I would think. But in terms of like that in that higher usage, and given the game was today, all these other games are in a week. I would be quite surprised if that kind of split carried forward.
Yeah, I think. I mean, after as good as he looked with the 2 touchdowns and even the 20-yard catch, I think he'll definitely still be a factor. But I
Right.
mean, it's hard for me to believe that he's going to have a better game than this
Right, and they're playing
anytime
the
soon.
Jets,
Yeah, right.
and the Dolphins
And I
are going
mean,
to
we've
know
even
they were playing the
seen.
Jets.
Yeah, we've even seen like after Gaskin has a really good game, the next week the Dolphins will use someone else a little bit more. So
Right.
I mean, there's stuff going on maybe that we don't totally have access to, but um,
Right.
the the Dolphins are kind of there's almost a pattern here.
Yeah.
The other guy, this is going to be crazy because we were all on him, but so Tony Pollard has been diagnosed with plantar fasciitis, and he took a week off. And despite that, he came back today. He had 12 carries, 74 yards for 0 scores. He also had 3 catches, got all 3 of his targets for 13 yards. Conor, I wanted to get your thoughts here on Pollard. I mean, you're not really going to be clicking him into your starting lineup, right? Like, does the plantar fasciitis have you completely off him for the rest of the season?
I mean, in terms of like season long stuff,
Anything.
for season long stuff, I mean the way I've drafted my teams, like if he's playing, he's probably one of the better options that I have.
Fair.
Not every team,
Yeah.
but in terms of like RB2, he's still one of the stronger options. Like he's obviously still explosive. Like the foot injury is concerning, but he was still explosive. He's still getting a decent touch share. It doesn't seem like Zeke is really capable of just taking the full load anymore. So there is that. I think that adds a floor to Pollard now. And in something like I don't know, like DFS, it does it probably just comes down to price and ownership there. Because like you do have that floor there, but the foot injury scares you of the ceiling, obviously, because if something were to happen to Zeke, you would be concerned, hey, can this guy really get 20 carries or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean and Curtis and Dave and I all drafted a main event team that, despite being like one of the worst teams we drafted, had the best record in its league. So is in the kind of championship round, and we were trying to decide today whether we were going to start Pollard or MVS, and we probably made the wrong decision by starting Pollard. But I mean, still, for all the reasons you mentioned, I think it's a decision that the process makes sense there. So I mean, especially with Zeke looking like he's, I don't know, not 100% or not
Right.
ever
You've got a
going to be
floor there.
100% of what he was. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, like we know Pollard has plantar fasciitis, and he's more explosive than Zeke, who practiced in full all week and has been saying he's fully ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Like what? Like how is the guy with plantar fasciitis more explosive and a better running back than the other guy who is? I mean, if you go back to like early June Twitter and like just search for Ezekiel Elliott, like people were passing around like pictures of like Zeke working out like he was, like DK Metcalf or
Right.
something. Like I
Right.
remember I remember that 3-week period and just thinking, oh man, look at these marks. Like look at these like absolute marks. Like just like anyone who's posting that favorably about like Zeke back then, there's a very real possibility they're losing money today. Like,
Yeah.
like the way they were talking about this guy, man, people were saying he's like a 102, 103, 101.
Well, that's where he was going.
It
He's
just
going consistently at that point.
I'm just amazing, man.
I mean,
One thing that go ahead.
The argument was that, like, hey, this is an extremely explosive offense. He's gonna get the goal line roll. He's gonna get a bunch of targets, and he doesn't have to be a Greek Adonis to score a lot of points in that spot. And it's one of those things where it's funny. They were right. They were right, but in the ways that they couldn't predict that they were wrong, like, hey, he's like, I'm not quite sure how old he is, but he's an older running back. He's on the second year of a second contract, and so you're at a huge risk, massive risk, that even if it's not a season-ending injury, that something like this, when he's already slowed down a bit, this thing is going to even push him down even more. The bone bruise, like I wonder if like a bone bruise to 23-year-old Ezekiel Elliott, if we'd even be hearing about it.
Yeah, it's a good question. Before you came on, Conor and I were talking about how a lot of these early running backs have really sunk a lot of teams. And I mean, Zeke is a great example, but also CMC, you have Kamara being injured a lot of the year.
Saquon.
I mean,
just Derrick Henry, unfortunately.
Right. Even Cook is hurt.
Yeah.
Right. And we'd been talking about Joe Mixon before, where Joe Mixon is someone who's actually had a great regular season, fantastic regular season, and he's brought teams into the playoffs. And now that you're in the playoffs, it just took the one game where all the warts came out, and you're done.
Yeah, if you were counting on Joe Mixon here, you're in really deep trouble. And that's where guys like Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, just unsexy guys,
right,
who are going so late. Like it just makes sense to like just have these dudes in your lineup. I'm sorry, it feels so gross to click. But it's like, well, I mean, ADP takes that into account. The reason like Leonard Fournette was so expensive is because he plays in an explosive offense. The reason Melvin Gordon's so gross is because he plays in a bad offense. But like, and give them enough volume, they all make they all get there, right? Like at the end of the day,
right. And I think it's something that's interesting, in terms of like perception, because I remember Leonard Fournette slid, and some of the issues where that people were worried that he gets squeezed out, and James Conor, James Conor is probably the best example. People were worried.
Oh God,
about James Connor's age, and they were saying, oh, he's this old, the other guy's younger, more explosive, but they had a problem there in the 10th round. But there was no problem with the first round guys.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, how do you decide that this is important for this guy, and it's not important for the other guy?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There were times where like I was staring at James Conor on the clock. I was overweight James Conor, but there was times where I'm staring at him on the clock and it's like, he's old. Like, what if blah blah blah.
Chase Edmonds is more explosive, man. We've all been there, dude. Like, and I think like the biggest thing with Edmonds is, as much as I love him, he has got a very, like, unfortunately, has a very slight build, and there's a reason, and he's also kind of this is going to sound blasphemous, not as good of a pass catcher as James Conner, in my opinion. Right? Like I think like James Conner is, and even from college has that ability to be this kind of like pass catcher a little bit. Chase Edmonds kind of never really was that guy, right? Like he doesn't get, like he's got that it's similar to Rojo where you think they should get more targets. They don't. And it's and because we think he's explosive, that's where we're kind of really kind of losing out. I mean, like Sean was on Conor. That's who got me on him, right? Like
he was on the list.
Yeah.
He was on the 0 RB list.
I'm wondering if, like, do you guys think that 2022 ADP will look a lot different because of the season we've had with these early running back collapses, or not?
So we can't expect these many high ADP running backs to get hurt like every single year. I think the number of running backs drafted would look the same. I just think the names are going to be different. What do you think, Conor?
So I think that one thing that will I guess push, or not pushing, will keep them pushed up, is that if you look at some of the advance rates and the league winning rates and stuff like that, and the statistics like that people are posting, hey, 2 running back did really well this year, because if you got the two guys right, you're crushing it. And part of that is that, hey, there was a lot of them got injured, and the receivers that I was drafting up there, like the likes of Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, and they're having good seasons, but they're not crushing it, and so I think that right now, or up until this week, people have been looking at these statistics, and my guess would have been that running backs next year will be running back heavier. But I think that each of these new weeks is like a new, like it become, because they're all elimination weeks. They're almost going to get equal weight in our collective consciousness, and I think that this week was like a turning of the tide almost, because if I look at my teams, one of the reasons I had a not great advance rate is because I did a lot of 0 RB, and particularly on underdog, that didn't work out good, but this week is looking a lot stronger for 0 RB, I think, than the quote unquote regular season. So maybe if we get a couple more weeks like that, the opinions will change.
Yeah, I mean, like Jeff Wilson was like one of an RB1 this week.
Right.
Like, I mean, we're still, and to caveat that a little bit, we're still waiting on the results of 4 games this weekend. Vegas, Cleveland, Vikings, Bears, Washington, Philadelphia, and Seattle Rams, right? But I mean, just if you go back to like even thinking about some of these teams, I think the only team, so Cleveland had a first-round running back drafted in Nick Chubb.
Mm-hmm.
If you were taking Josh Jacobs, his ADP was going the wrong way, and people were scooping up, calling him a value. Well, there's a reason why he's not going as early as he used to. Dalvin is another guy who's probably a league winner. David Montgomery is a guy who I was dead sure I was wrong on, and I was ready to be fully put in a coffin by him until he got hurt, which is unfortunate. Washington, Antonio Gibson never really threatened to be the guy who we all thought he was going to be. Miles Sanders has just, time and time again has shown that he's not worth his like 2-3 turn ADP. Seattle,
Kamara's playing tonight too.
Yeah. Kamara's playing tonight as well. Seattle, I saw people were like talking about being 50% on Chris Carson. Like, man, there's like, that's like a cry for help at that point. Like, if you're 50% Chris Carson in the 4th round, man, like I don't know what you're doing with your life. And Miles Sanders, again, like I was mentioning, for the Rams, it's unfortunate what happened to Akers. But people didn't adjust quick enough to Henderson. But they also, also chasing Henderson into the fourth round was a bad idea. So I don't know. Like there's a lot of guys here. Like it depends on when you drafted. I've got a lot of teams where Henderson is my RB3 or RB4. Like I got like Kamara, and then I got like Hubbard and like Henderson, like type of guys.
I wonder if Henderson's even been good enough if you got him in the 11th round to really make that much of a difference for your team.
In these weeks, I don't know, but in the early goings, yeah, he was, man. He was like that, all that.
So
like, he was good.
The thing with Henderson is if you look at his points total, it's not that high. But if you look at the distribution, like I believe he's before this week he'd only scored like 20 more points than AJ Dillon. But he had weeks of like 20 points, 15 points, 25 points, and so forth. Whereas those are all going to count strongly.
Right.
Whereas AJ Dillon, he's building up a lot of 5 to 10, 15 if you're lucky weeks to get there.
Yeah. Right.
That was another guy who people were very wrong on until like early August was Aaron Jones. But like to that point though, fantasy analysts have been wrong on Aaron Jones for like years. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember very big name accounts saying the Packers are gonna let Aaron Jones walk. He's not worth it. It depresses ADP. He was a smash of the ADP. Then they're like, oh, they're gonna trade him. His ADP flattened. He was a smash of the ADP again. Like it's just like one of those like. This was the year for the first time, I think, because a friend of the show, Jack Miller, was pumping him really hard at established the run and ETR, but like really jacked him up in their rankings. And I think if it wasn't for them, you'd still be like getting like Aaron Jones at like the 205 to 208 range. And it's like such a smash click at that point. Like it's just like for all the people that fantasy analysts tend to hype and fantasy community hypes, like it wasn't until this year that Aaron Jones got his respect. So obviously this was the year he was going to miss time.
Yeah. Jones was such a hard name to click, even at 205. I thought 208 or something like that, just because you have the threat of Dillon, who I think probably we at RotoViz were a little bit over enthusiastic about. But I mean, he's looked good too, so I don't regret it.
Right. We'll do it again for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your thoughts here on a little bit on James Robinson. Because he had 18 rushes for 75 yards and a score. He also had 6 targets. So he got 3 of those for 13 yards. Is this it? Is it J-Rob season?
More so than before. I think one point in his favor. Carlos Hyde didn't play. I think as well that. There's probably going to be less weird stuff than before. Like these weird periods of like where Trevor Lawrence is saying, why isn't my best running back on the field? Like there's probably going to be less of that. I think though too, it's still the Jaguars. Unfortunately, unfortunately they had the 101 pick for a reason. They've had all these injuries to their skill position players. So he's probably not going to get the best of game scripts all in all. I think we still have to see how much Carlos Hyde will mix back in, and I don't think that part of it is going to change too much, because you had these clips where Urban Meyer was like, oh hey, this guy hasn't been playing as much, and it's like, and he'd say, oh, they have been, and then you see they literally played 0 snaps. Like he was completely aloof as to what the rotations were. So there was obviously the existing staff obviously had a big influence on the rotations, and so you're probably going to see still some rotation. But definitely better than before. I think it's important as well that he's a good player, like a second-year talented player. That matters a lot, and that's always the thing. That's always the thing that we're focusing on, right? Are they good? And James Robinson is good, He's probably got a much safer touch floor now. He's probably got a better upside floor. But today, I think today was the perfect situation for him. And they're playing the Texans, and Carlos Hyde was out.
Yeah. You can tell maybe that my teams are all out of it because I'm already thinking about next year. But what would you guys think is like the earliest you would feel comfortable drafting ETN next year?
ETN.
Of all names, dude. All right, so I had like before training camp, I was at 30% ETN with like a fifth, sixth round like average cost. So of all the names you had to pick, man, of all the names,
just a dagger.
just like why don't you come over here and stab me?
Well, like, I mean, can you go into next year assuming that there's news that ETN is recovering well from his injury?
Right.
Can you go in even knowing that James Robinson is good and still take him, even in the top 7, 8 rounds?
I would take him fifth, but man, it's
Robinson.
No, ETN.
Yeah.
I would probably
yeah.
mix. I would probably mix both of them. I respect them to go back to back. I just think that there's going to be a lot of residual enthusiasm on the Jags, man. Like, what do you think,
Yeah.
Connor? Like, do you think people are going to be overdrafting Jaguar skill players just because Urban Meyer's not there?
Overdrafting? Maybe, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, what's the earliest you would feel comfortable taking Chenault? Someone we love.
I mean, for me, Chenault is probably one where because of the different situations that he's been in, where he's gone from a guy where he's getting a lot of short targets, and that's supposed to be a skill set, and he hasn't been able. I mean, honestly, he hasn't been able to be efficient with that. Like maybe some of that is game plan or whatever, but you need, when you're getting these short passes, you need a near 100% catch rate.
Yep.
You need to be getting a lot of yards after catch. You need to be some version of Deebo Samuels, basically.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been there.
Right.
Like I mean, I'm ready to believe that it could be. I'm ready to believe that, hey, there's some sort of coaching thing or something like that. But I need to. I'd be extremely price conscious.
Yeah.
Probably like 11 or 12 or like.
It has to be later, man.
Even a
has to be later. I'm thinking like Jalen Reagor from this season type of pricing, right? It's like 14, 15.
Yeah, see, I was thinking if Chenault were in the 15th round, I'd probably have close to 100%. So maybe I'm a little too bullish, but
a little too bullish.
11th or 12th makes sense to me.
11th or 12th is where I'd probably be out, man. That's right where I'm going to be out.
Interesting.
Like I would like, so I am actually interested in him in like the 13th or later, like, and even then 13th would be a bit dicey, because there's a bunch of guys who go around that range who you really, really want. I think. I actually think someone, and I'm hoping that his really bad late season swoon continues, is Rashad Bateman, who I think will be going around there, like 11, 12, who I'd really much rather have.
Shocked if Bateman is going there.
I think he will be. The narrative
player, like,
yeah, people are going to talk to themselves. He's having
huge games.
Oh, but he's having a really bad back half of the season. He's disappeared entirely. The team is going to get back J.K. Dobbins. They're going to get a healthier defense. There's going to be less pass volume against them. Lamar's going to be back to running. They're going to go back to this run-heavy offense. Lamar, like I'm telling you right now, Rashad Bateman is going to be going in the 11th, 12th. That is where his ADP is going to settle, because he is that kind of player who people are never going to chase into the single-digit rounds, even though they should be. And that's where we're going to bounce.
Yeah, I mean, today he had 2 targets, only 5 yards, right? So, I mean, like you said, these playoff weeks are are gonna stick in your brain. So I mean,
Right.
unless he has a big week next week or the week after, I think.
We need him. We need him to do nothing. Unfortunately,
How much of him doing nothing would you take as like a signal to stay away versus a signal that his ADP is too low?
absolutely none. Because people weren't on him last week against the Browns where he did nothing, and we just saw Sammy Watkins just dropping balls left, right, and center, and Devin Duvernay dropping balls left, right, and center. And then in the fourth quarter, they were like, "All right, gonna give the ball to Bateman," and he went 703 and no scores, and no one's gonna remember that. No one's gonna remember that stuff and even today, like Huntley badly overthrew him on like 2 or 3 different deep balls, and it could have been a very different scoreline today. Like, we need this to continue. Yeah, this is a good point by historical anomalies.
So, I mean, we've talked about the Jaguars a lot, but it's always fun to discuss Lawrence and what really is going on here. But, I mean, how confident are you even that he does progress and that he's not the quarterback we've actually seen this year?
That's a really difficult call. I think that you have to assume some progression, right? But you don't want to be you still want it to be a situation where if the upside case happens, that is still a nice payoff. Like you don't want to be chasing this into like a, hey, we believe it he just developed so much, he's still the 101. You don't want any of that priced in, because we've got a year of them. Like, so
Sorry, you're saying?
You need the upside embedded in the price, or say you need to have the upside from a low price, I should say.
Yeah, but I think the issue is that the fantasy community does tend to talk themselves into the upside case. It's kind of the median, like as the base case. We've seen that happen a lot with the Browns, and the Jags are going to be once again that trendy team. And I can see Lawrence right now in my head going in like the 10th round, and I'm out of that price. Lawrence has not looked good, man. Like, I'll be very, very frank. He has not looked good, and I'm not willing to give him any excuses. He's bad, man. Like it's and you can give him a wash or whatever for this year, but if he's going in like the 10th or 11th, like, I'm way out in that price. Like, I would much rather have like someone like just whoever else would be going around in that range. I have no interest in Trevor Lawrence there.
Yeah, it's obviously not impossible for guys to have poor rookie seasons and still be fine NFL quarterbacks. Like, I mean, Peyton Manning's the most famous example, but Matt Ryan also was pretty bad as a rookie. I'm trying to think. There are some other guys, but I mean, obviously, there are also a lot of guys who were bad as rookies and then are just bad.
He's just bad, man. He's just bad.
Conor was bad as a rookie too.
Blaine Gabbert was bad. Like a lot of people are saying Zach Wilson is bad, right? Zach Wilson beat the same Texans team that completely demolished the Jags.
Yeah,
and they lost at home. Like, the Jets won at Houston, I think, right? And don't take this as like, oh, I think Zach Wilson. Like Pat Kerrane has made this point on NBC Sports Edge where on Ship Chasing that Trevor Lawrence is mildly better than Wilson a handful of things. He's like in line with like Josh Rosen, who instantly lost his job the next year, right? Like, and some of this is on Lawrence, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, at the same time, if Urban Meyer is as bad as it sounds like he is, then a small part of me wants to just kind of throw this season out for the Jaguars. How much should I listen to that part?
No, you shouldn't because because he's got one game of over 2 games of over 300 yards passing. Actually, he threw for 332 yards, and his debut was awesome. 332 yards, 3 scores, also threw 3 ints. That's fine, right? And it's only been downhill since, man. Like, he has looked like a shell of himself, and like they're just losing to, you know, you were expected a little bit more competitive of a game. We didn't get that, right? And I think the Jags are going to be a team that drafts an early receiver next year. But I'd be very hesitant to like start giving these guys some kind of like a bump to a best case scenario, because you don't want to do that, because that just really, like as Conor was saying, caps your upside. Like if like it's like think about chasing Baker Mayfield's sophomore season, and you know people were out there like doubting the Browns over the team total like season long, and like the Browns got completely destroyed. Like,
Yeah, Baker was good as a rookie though.
yeah, he had one of the best rookie seasons ever, man.
I think that one argument you could make in Lawrence's favor is that the remaining skill position players are not good.
Yeah.
Like, and Shark has gotten injured. Like a bunch, like they had Agnew, who was doing well. He's hurt now. Like, it's
But even that is telling you something, that Agnew is one of their best skill position
Right.
players, right?
Right. He's a kickoff returner, and I mean they were able to get good production out of a kick returner.
Yeah.
But you you do have to you do have to take the evidence. Like it's not like the season didn't happen. You still have to, like, hey, he did these things, and I think maybe when the season's over, you can kind of come to some there's some kind of like way that you can make excuses for him or whatever. But yeah, I think it is going to be a thing where price dictates it.
Sure, for sure.
I have a name for you. Kyle Pitts, right? He got 4 of his 7 targets for 77 yards today. Where are you taking him next year? And who will you be taking ahead of him?
What
Kyle
format?
Pitts.
Kyle Pitts.
Is it 1.5 premium? Is it
no. Just think
Dynasty,
think PPR redraft best ball. It's a tough question. So just to give you like context, he was around the 4-5 turn this year.
Right.
If you want to be fair, like call them like, you know, halfway through the 4th, right? So would you be taking earlier than halfway through the 4th, or around where he was? Like where would you be taking him?
I'd be comfortable doing 4 or 5. Honestly, just because that's something where like you have so much strong evidence that, hey, if somebody does anything in year 1, you get that bump up. You can put in his prospect stuff.
Yeah.
Like in the 3rd round, that feels very aggressive. Like versus who you could take there, where you don't have to project stuff. But 4 or 5, I'd be comfortable. 6, I'd be getting very happy.
I'll give you what I think is the actual 1-for-1 TE pick going back to back next in 2022. So Kyle Pitts or TJ Hawkinson. I think those 2 guys are going to go in the same round within like 3 picks of each other. That's platform agnostic. I think it's going to be all platforms.
No, I can see that for sure. I mean, I think, man, I was so in on Hawkinson this year, and I still like him. I still think he's a good player. That's tough. I'd probably lean Pitts. I mean, 4th was also what came into my mind when you asked that question, but I also might be anchoring to his ADP this year a little bit.
That's exactly what I did in my head. Now that I think about it, like, 4 or 5, yeah, same.
Right. But I mean, at the same time, when you think about who you would definitely take ahead of him, like, you know, there are maybe 3 or 4 guys.
Right. Like I'd definitely take him ahead of somebody like Fant, or like anybody who's in that kind of mid tier. What about someone like? I know this is a topic thing. What about someone like Hunter Henry? Because like he's someone who's absolutely doing great.
Yeah.
He's only had like 2 of these games. He's been like a very unusable guy. I think. I mean, I'd probably at cost prefer Jonnu Smith. I'll be honest.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean Henry. Well, right, he had 2 touchdowns this week. He's getting the red zone work. He's not somebody that I've ever really been on. I always think he seems a little bit overpriced, and my guess is I probably will again next year, no matter where he's going. But I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't take him ahead of Pitts.
No.
Yeah,
No. You can't at all.
right.
I think I had it pulled up here. So there's like a class of tight end that like just sort of winds up in the weirdo single digit to early double digit rounds. That's just a bunch of grenades, right? So this year
that's
grenades,
why I picked them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this year the biggest grenade people just sort of fell on was Robert Tonyan. Man, like it's a shame that he tore his ACL, but even before he did that, he was doing nothing for your roster, right? People instantly fell on this grenade and just sort of fragged themselves, and that's like a process error, right? The other one was Tyler Higbee, where people were just sort of running him back and not even thinking, okay, it's a new, Cooper Kupp seems to be getting back up to speed, just not even thinking. Like they just people were rushing to auto click this guy and just sort of get nuked, right? And they were really excited about that.
Dallas
Rob
Goedert,
Gronkowski
maybe.
Dallas Goedert's been good, right? But he wasn't until they moved Ertz. Fant's another one. But I mean, in hindsight, Fant did everything you kind of like, was kind of like Kyle Pitts, but he did well enough to where you would be comfortable with him where he went. It's just a shame that offense is kind of broken with a quarterback. Logan Thomas is another guy who just unfortunately couldn't stay healthy, but I don't know if I would be clicking him where he was in the 7th.
Where, without looking, where would you guess Pitts is ranked in overall tight ends this year?
Tight end 3.
Tight end 4. He's behind Kelsey, Andrews, and Kittle. I mean, Kittle
basically. I forgot Kittle had the big weeks.
All in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean.
Kittle's win rates are going to look terrible, dude.
Yeah, right. It's easy to forget that you don't. I mean, it's just easy to forget that you don't need, like, after the top 3 tight ends, like Pitts has 137 points on the season. He's tight end 4. You don't need really a good season to be a low end tight end 1. So,
yeah. And this is where the differences between best ball and redraft are interesting. So with best ball, you just need the points. You can't counterpunch these zeros. There's a guy who is going to be finishing 4th or whatever in one of my best ball playoff leagues because he's going to be taking 0 at the quarterback position despite drafting 3 of them. His quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, and there's another guy who went on IR, Jameis Winston.
That's a bad beat.
And that's just how it goes, right? I mean, the rest of his team is pretty good, unfortunately, right? He had Mark Andrews and he had Marquise Brown, and then like he's going to take a 0 at the quarterback position. You're instantly down 18 to 20 points. How are you going to get out? Like, you're just not going to get out. And like, I would encourage people to take a look at where these points are coming from because, and I shared this in the Rotoviz Slack with you guys, Conor and Blair, is I had a team that advanced to the playoff rounds, and my top 2 running backs were Michael Carter on IR and Christian McCaffrey on IR. And Ronald Jones is another one. He's not cracking my starting lineup in the running back. He's not even getting any points. I'm getting 0s from Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just and then that team is, and if anyone's shocked at this, it's being eliminated as we speak, right? Like, it's not, it's you'd expect that with 0s coming.
I think I was sorting my tight end rankings wrong, actually. Pitts is not the tight end 4 or tight end 3. He's like the tight end 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Is that total points or is that points per game?
Total fantasy points.
Oh, wow.
Also, Hawkinson is above him Hunter Henry, Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz, Mike Gesicki. Can this be right?
Sure, it
I
sounds
mean,
like
Knox
you're.
has 8 touchdowns on the season.
Yeah, Knox.
Hunter Henry
Knox
has
makes
9.
sense.
So, I mean, these guys are getting it done on touchdowns. Gesicki hasn't been terrible. Like he doesn't have as many touchdowns, but he's
He's
Gesicki
had
was
his weeks.
helped. Yeah, the second this, I mean, like when Barker was gone and they lost Fuller, like that was it. Like it was wheels up for Gesicki at like pretty much by week 2, right?
yeah. The thing is that Pitts, he's 3rd in total yards, but he's only scored 1 touchdown this season.
Yeah.
So I think you still, even though he's kind of lower in the rankings, you still probably have a good reason to take him higher,
Just
take him
gotta click
above
him.
all these guys.
Just got
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
And I think someone like Dawson Knox, he's probably the prototype tight end who's going to be overdrafted, right?
yeah, he's gonna be the Tunyon, right? He's got to be the Tunyon of next year.
Like he does. If you look at his stats, he does have a good red zone target share, and he plays for the Bills. But he's like just the perfect mix of factors that get a tight end overdrafted. Like he's caught lightning in a bottle this year, and people just like, oh yeah, that's what we'll do this year.
It was like Higby 2 years ago or Tunyon last year, right? Like these guys all like they catch like a bunch of TDs. It gets that TD fueled. Yeah, I like that call. By the way, that's a really good call. I mean, all those TDs need to do is go like the other way, right? Like Diggs, maybe Cole Beasley, Sanders, Gabe Davis, like literally any of the plethora of wide receivers they got, right? Like,
right. Yeah, that's interesting because we've talked in previous episodes about how Diggs is kind of having a disappointing season, especially from an efficiency standpoint. But a couple of those Knox touchdowns go his way instead, and everything looks completely different.
I think I remember when they were playing the Patriots, either the Patriots or the Buccaneers. I think it was the Patriots that the broadcast said that Josh Allen told them, "Hey, I haven't been targeting Diggs enough. Like he's clearly my best player. I got to throw it to him more." And I never felt like so frustrated. Like, yeah, you should have.
It's funny.
How what do you guys think of the likes of Diggs, Tyreek, Devante? Do you guys think that those the likes of those guys will fall, or if there is there some fundamental shift happening in the NFL where somebody like that or what we imagine them to be, these 30% share guys, does that not exist anymore? Or is this just one of those weird one season things and then the trend reverses the next year?
I mean, we see kind of Cooper Kupp putting up the sort of season we hope to get from someone like Hill or Adams. So, those guys still exist. It's just not necessarily who we thought. But I mean, I mean, it's hard to believe that Hill and Adams wouldn't still be first round picks next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the Diggs was a second rounder. It's just hard because I think Diggs is gonna slide, but it gets, like you were saying, gets difficult. Like, who do you put up there? I think Justin Jefferson is gonna go up at like the wide receiver 3. But like, I mean, a lot of what makes these like elite 30% target share seasons is part of it's a little bit of just injury, right? Like, like it's just so like with Diggs had like Cole Beasley gotten hurt. Diggs
Smokey Brown.
Yeah.
Smokey Brown last year.
Smokey Brown, yeah. Like people were down on Nuke, and this year he gets hurt, and then it's like his auxiliary guys were like completely Kirk and everyone's going off. Like AJ Brown should have smashed. The poor guy was even playing through injury, and that about sinks the entire team, right? Justin Jefferson, the team woke up a little bit like Allen and Diggs, like they woke up a little bit too late, and then Thielen got hurt, and Justin Jefferson went ahead and committed like I don't know, like assault on the Steelers' secondary, just in front of everyone's eyes, right? And
Only Kirk Cousins could have helped him.
Yeah, I know. Conversely, why were people taking Allen Robinson as wide receiver 10? He was just off my board. I just had no interest in him there. I can see the arguments for why you do it, but
I think that's one where we were just completely wrong about the volume, and what he would be able to do with it. I think on a kind of overall thing, the fact that it kind of sounds like overall we've I don't want to say wrong, but what we expected in terms of target shares and things like basically volume and volume opportunity shares hasn't worked out the way we expected, and to a bigger degree than normal. Do you guys would that make you guys more likely to take a chance at maybe a running back next year in the first, and then hammer receiver, or is it just still the case of like, hey, we don't know, so let's just get the volume while we can and structure to that?
Yeah, I think the latter for me, man. Like I've been like very one of the things I tried doing a lot this year was thinking about how to like not just differentiate your lineup for the sake of differentiation, but the profile of the guy that I'm clicking, choosing to be underweight and select players versus overweight at ADP. And in a lot of cases, you just have to take what comes to you, right? Like at the 101, I was taking CMC because how often am I getting the 101?
Right.
If my somehow my frequency of luck for getting the 101 increases, then yeah, I'm going to be naturally diversifying because you don't want to be too overboard on any one guy at the top that can completely sink your lineup. Because it gets interesting. It's just where you see that like really shallow standard deviation in the early picks is where I think it gets a little bit bad. Towards the end, like the bottom half of the first is where it gets interesting because people really do tend to mix and match. You could do something like Saquon Antonio Gibson from the 9 hole, or you could also do something like Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler from the 9 hole. It all just depends on who your draft gives you and the kind of profile you're taking. But when you're taking guys like that, like I'm just at that point that I'm hammering receiver, hammering tight end, hammering quarterback. Right. I'm not taking another running back until like 13th, 14th, like really late.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think it would be, well, it'll definitely be interesting to dig into like the win rates after this year and see how it's changed things. I mean, we've had years like this in the past. I remember a couple years ago, everyone was talking about how spread out offenses are getting, and it means there's less, we're not going to have the same wide receiver ones we've had, and you still had Antonio Brown every year. And it didn't really change the way I was drafting, even all those talking points, even when it was coming from people whose opinion I actually like respect. Like Ben Gretsch was writing articles about that. And I was like, oh yeah, Ben is probably right, but I'm not going to stop drafting wide receivers. So I don't think I'm going to in 2022 either.
Do you think that some of it is that there's always going to be guys or wide receivers who, regardless of what the original intent of the offense was, they're just that good that they just command the 30% or and we're just going to try and get those guys as many as often as we can.
Jamar Chase probably next year. I think the team's going to let Boyd walk.
That's interesting.
People were right. I mean, the thesis behind Higgins was right. He just got hurt. Like now it's just like coming to fruition, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, the kind of our thesis with drafting Higgins and drafting Chase and even Boyd is that this offense will be so explosive that it won't even matter, like that there's three guys. And that hasn't exactly worked out. But I think with the rookie season Chase has had so far, I mean, I don't know. Where do you guys expect him to go next year?
Conor, you had some really good thoughts on this in the road of his Slack. Share them with the listeners, please. About Mixon and everything else, skewing back to the run heavy.
So I okay. So though I guess with the Bengals in particular, I'm extremely frustrated, because we had thought that they were just going to pass. That we thought they were going to throw a lot, but they've come out with these comments now that hey, we want to establish the run, and I think that one of the issues that they're having as a football team is that Joe Burrow stylistically as a passer, when he drops back, he has a really long A dot, which is it we like that's good, that it's aggressive, but it means he holds the ball more, and that means that the more times they throw it, the more often he's going to get hit, and with who he is as a passer, that's the reality that they have to deal with. I don't think wouldn't have predicted that or thought of that before the season started. But it's frustrating that even when they're playing against someone like the 49ers last week, and you're like, oh, like their top two cornerbacks are really injured, are injured. They've got a really good run front, like throw the ball, and they were just so committed to running the ball. They're so slow. So I found that extremely frustrating. And I think that you couldn't really have predicted it, because even in games with Mixon last year, they were throwing the ball a ton. That's what they were doing, regardless of situation. I think specifically with Chase, that's something where I personally think that you want to go with the talent, more so than the description of what's happened this year, and what the problems have been, because that's the thing that we that's what we're talking about. That's the thing that we can actually. That's the thing that we know will be true next year. We know that next year Jamar Chase will be very talented. We'll know he'll have another year in the NFL. His training camp will probably be a bit smoother because he'll have played football recently. I think that the stuff about whether they're going to what their throw rate is going to be, that'll probably give some, or they probably should give people some concern. But it's not something that we could predict to carry over.
Yeah.
I think that he's probably going to get the Justin Jefferson sort of range, right? And
For sure.
I'd be happy taking him there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, Hasan, you mentioned you thought Boyd might be gone. With, today we saw Chase have basically his worst game as a pro, only 3 yards on 4 targets. And Chase went off. I mean, not Chase, Boyd went off.
They didn't have to throw.
Yeah, well, no, that's true. Do you think, like, if Boyd is gone, or does where you take Chase depend on whether Boyd is still there? Can you see a scenario next year in which Chase has a secondary breakout season and Boyd is still on the team?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Actually, it would actually work a little bit better for us if Boyd was there. If only because it would provide covering fire, right? Because you can see people get into your draft and say they have Boyd and they have Higgins.
Yeah.
Right. And you can see Chase going after Higgins. And it's
when people
I'm sorry.
When people a lot of the volume based or value based drafting is done based on projections, and when you do projections for the Bengals, if you have 3 guys there, it's going to push them down.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, part of the reason why Metcalf and Justin Jefferson were and Brown as well, were so high this year was not just because they had good rookie seasons. It was also because Justin Jefferson and it's Adam Thielen, and it's a very narrow target tree, right? Like for as early as JJ, like Jefferson was going, Thielen was also going early. Julio Jones was also going early. Despite the thin target tree, Mike Williams wasn't going early. Cooper Kupp and Woods are another example of a thin target tree going early together. Metcalf and Lockett, Godwin and Evans, just like Godwin and Evans going back to back picks, right? It's just so people are like gonna be talking themselves into they can't see it with these three good receivers type of thing. I think I think Chase goes a little bit lower than he should. I would assume just from my perspective. I think you kind of see this a split that's similar to what you had with CD and Amari, like 12 and 13. But if this run heavy approach stays, you probably get like Higgins as like 12, and you get Chase at like wide receiver 15, 16, 17, somewhere like there. And that's
I think one thing that is going to, keep Chase high enough is that he has actually scored a bucket load of points this year.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely going to come down after this week. But before this week, he was wide receiver 7 in scoring.
Yeah.
It'll probably get pushed down to wide receiver 10 or so. So that's probably going to be somewhat of a because like that's a factor when people do their rankings, like whether they like it or not, they get anchored to
where you finished, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who was like the wide receiver 10 or something this year and where they were going. But I mean, if you
it was Allen Robinson. It was Allen Robinson, and he was going
that's
at
what I
like
was thinking.
in the early third.
Yeah, early middle third.
No, or like at the 303, he was going earlier than Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, came him. Like he just like people were just like, he's gonna get all the volume. He's Allen Robinson. He's so good.
Yeah, so if you see Chase going in the early third, I mean that's even later than Jefferson was going this year.
Yeah, because they were going in the mid-second, and Metcalf. Metcalf is a guy whose price I couldn't square, I think, this year, and it kind of maybe I lucked into it a little bit.
Yeah,
Metcalf is. I mean, it's just everyone talks themselves into the Seahawks cooking, and it never works out, guys. It's like the 5th year in a row. Like 5 years gone, man. Like, I mean, and the thesis there for Metcalf is there, right? But like, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown at cost were probably better. You probably wanted, it was what we talked about at the top of the show, where you wanted to be mixing these guys in, right?
Right.
Do you think that are you saying essentially that he was at a price that where this extra pass volume / efficiency, it was already in that price?
It was already baked in. It's been baked in for those guys for years, man. If I told you, do you want to guess where what Russell Wilson's ADP was? Out of curiosity, where do you think he went? Like not his round, but like what pick was he if you're picking quarterbacks?
You mean like what quarterback pick?
8.
Yeah,
I think 7 or 8.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Very, very close. He was QB6. He was going earlier than Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
I mean, that's to me like that's ass backwards, right? Like, you'd rather have Herbert than like Wilson, in my opinion. And he was going earlier than Aaron Rodgers, right? So it's just like, because people always talk themselves into like this Wilson who exists in their minds, and not the one who we currently have.
Probably right.
Earlier than Brady, earlier than Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, everybody else.
Yeah, and given what we know now, or should have known in July, that does seem quite bad.
Yeah, it's just you can't, like, I couldn't square the receivers and Chris Carson's ADP, so I was just out on Chris Carson, which was kind of fortunate, right? But there's another breed of player, like I was mentioning, that is on Chris Carson, like 40+% Chris Carson in the 4th, thinking that they're ready to like run to the printing presses. Buddy, like like they should be going to the ATMs and just depositing the money into our accounts.
All right. Yeah. Well, on that note, we should probably call it a night, right? We're going on pushing an hour and a half.
Hey, it's good to have Conor on. I would, we want to thank him for coming back on. Please follow him at Drico Out. Remember to rate and review the RotoViz radio channel on podcast, Spotify.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And check out Connor's article at RotoViz. He writes the buy low report every week. So something to definitely check out, and make sure you're subscribed to RotoViz so you can catch that every week. Don't wanna miss it.
Conor, what are your off-season plans? Just let the people know where you're going to be, where they can find you, and
I honestly, I haven't thought too much about off season, but anything that I do right will be on RotoViz. I think that yeah, I'll probably have more thoughts once I look at all the data and stuff like that. But yeah, really looking forward to the off season. Really looking forward to looking back at the season. I guess I don't want to jump ahead too much. We still have a lot of football left, so I'm enjoying that too. But thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next week.